What's up, my beautiful people? Exile451 here with another daily dose of Reddit hope and happy. And let me tell you, I'm super excited about today's video because it's an intense story. Been a while since I last did a Humans of Reddit video, so let's get to it. Alright, so to set this up, about 6 months ago, I came across a post during my usual content searching that caught my attention. Not necessarily the post itself, but the story he talked about. He went from being a successful businessman at a Fortune 500 company to a raging meth addict, and has somehow managed to cobble his life back together. And as you guys know, I am a sucker for a good redemption story. His Reddit name is Alpha Tweaker, and you can read his story in depth at his website in the description. I don't want to waste too much time with an intro, so that having been said, we're going to dive on in here. Could you tell me a little about your early life? You know, what was it like being a kid, growing up, going through school, etc.? Just kind of what led to everything else, like before it all happened.
Sure. I had a quintessential, nearly perfect upbringing. I was a Navy brat. My dad was in the Navy. Both of my parents are Hispanics from Corpus Christi, and we grew up on Navy bases, moving around every couple of years. So I lived in a bunch of different places growing up, including outside of the country. I played Little League. I was in NHS in high school. I wrestled. I was in the band. I was pretty active. You know, I was pretty social. I have one older sister. She's like the smart introvert, like straight A, went to Ivy League, became a doctor. I'm more of the extrovert, you know, more social, more outgoing. Never really got in much trouble in middle or high school. Went to a pretty good university as well. Kind of a lot of rich kids, I guess. And I couldn't have asked for a better upbringing. Like I have no traumatic childhood events. I have no type of, issue stemming from my youth that I hold contentment on. So yeah, I mean, my raising and upbringing was pretty solid.
Can you describe your process a bit in the run-up to your addiction? Was there like any behavior or habit that may have contributed?
I mean, I guess from a drug standpoint and an addiction standpoint, I started smoking weed daily in college. I was in a fraternity and we drank a lot of beer, a bunch of good old Texas boys. I mean, we binge drink every week. You know, it wasn't uncommon for us to go every day drinking at the house. I also fell into a pretty heavy rave and electronic music scene. In the late 90s and early thousands in Texas, there used to be these huge outdoor electronic raves. And I actually started DJing. I had turntables and records, and I had a group of friends, and we were all DJs. I had friends that spun at clubs, and, that rave scene kind of kicked up drug use a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of ecstasy use in there, both speedy and smacky, either pills cut with speed or pills cut with heroin. But we were always able to come back and go to class and pass our exams and study. I may not have had the best grades starting out, but once I switched my major from science and medicine to business, I was able to kind of, get my B's and my C's while still indulging pretty heavily in both alcohol, weed, ecstasy in college. So the thing about like my story is it's not like all of a sudden one day a switch was flipped and I became this raging addict. It was a very slow and gradual buildup that occurred over the course of I'd say a couple decades almost.
Could you go into a little more detail about like what was the immediate run-up of your meth addiction? Like the stuff you were talking about on your blog about the financial tests and everything else. If you could kind of elaborate on that, that would be good.
Right. So I've learned looking back and trying to analyze like what I did wrong and like why this all happened. And I've concluded that I tend to be a pretty influenced by the group and the people that I surround myself with. So right out of college, about a year after I graduated, I landed an awesome opportunity as an entry-level financial advisor with arguably one of the best companies in America. They liked my background as a Navy brat. I had it, but anyways, this is a very structured company. It's almost like being in high school. I mean, it's just thousands and thousands of employees, and we were in kind of the spearhead of a new venture with financial advice being taken up to a wealth management level. But part of this company culture was to advance yourself and, kind of build up credentials that you had. And two of these that are the premier designations in financial advice are the CFP, which is Certified Financial Planner, and then the CFA, which is a Chartered Financial Analyst. So these are two financial exams that I studied daily every morning for about 4 years for. The CFA in particular is the hard one. It's a series of 3 exams offered once annually. If you fail, you have to wait another year to sit for it. And the pass rate are usually in the low 30s to 40% on each level. You're going head to head against financial analysts globally. So India, Tokyo, London, financial analysts all over the world are sitting for this exam. And each level gets harder. Level 2 is like the weed out course. It's pretty intense. It's all self-study. It's basically 5 or 6 big textbooks. And a good work friend of mine, his name's Rodrigo. I do talk about him in the blog. This guy was a D1 athlete, got a full athletic scholarship to University of New Mexico. Out of about 60 advisors, we were the 2 youngest, and then we were both also Hispanics. And we worked on the same team, and he helped step up my level of commitment to a level that I wouldn't have gone on my own. But his routine that I latched onto was to get up every morning at like 5 a.m. and study for a good 2 or 3 hours before we go into work. The only way that I could sit down and study, and I learned this in college, was with Adderall. If I don't have Adderall, I will sit down for 20 minutes and then my leg starts bouncing, my pencil starts tapping, and I just lose interest. The first time I tried Adderall in college, it finally clicked. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is amazing. This is significant to me. I was like, this is how they do it. I was like, I don't know what this drug is doing to me, but this is how people can study for hours on end. And every day for about 4 or 5 years, I would take anywhere from 30 to 60 milligrams of Adderall daily, mostly to study in the mornings and then be able to work a full day afterwards. The Adderall kind of speeds you up. It's a stimulant. So you have to have food in your stomach, otherwise you get cracked out. But I developed a routine where every morning I had a Volcano marijuana vaporizer. I would set my alarm for like 5 a.m. I would swallow a 30 milligram Adderall pill, smoke some weed from the Volcano vaporizer so that I would be hungry by the time I got to work, and I could eat breakfast right around the time that the Adderall was setting in. I'd study for a couple of hours, go to work. When I started to crash on the Adderall, I would either take more Adderall, or at one point I discovered the use of opiates and painkillers that could basically keep the train going and put me in a fantastic mood at work. At the end of the day, I'd be spun out and just kind of, hyperactive. So I would smoke a bunch of weed and I would drink a bunch of liquor and beer to calm down off of that. So my job and my opportunity that I was presented with, I didn't want to waste that. So I worked hard to get these credentials. The way I obtained these credentials was with heavy use of Adderall, which led to, self-medicating with many other substances. So it's like a cocktail pretty much that I had developed. And I did that for a good 4 or 5 years daily.
You did all this for the tests to be able to pass it?
Yes.
Once you were done with these tests and your routine of, weed and Adderall and occasional opiates to kind of keep you focused on it all, what happened? I mean, obviously that's a lot of free time available.
Yes. Not only that, but I was so focused on passing these exams that on the 3rd level, I was like, there's no way I'm going to fail this. There's no way I'm going to do this all again. I'm passing this exam. So I sacrificed at my work. And I basically blew off work and I said, I'm going to see how little work I could do without getting fired to maximize my study time. So I was able to get very efficient at putting up numbers in my role in working 2 to 4 hours a day. Now, when I made it to level 3, this is also something that I think kind of contributed to this whole downfall. Is my company, our home base is in a small city in Texas, and there's like 14,000 employees there. We started a new branch for wealth management in Houston, and it was myself and a junior advisor that left the home office and started this office up. And over the course of a couple of years, we grew it from 2 to 9. So when I was studying for the third level of the CFA exam, I was kind of removed from the home office. I saw my boss once a month. Every time he would come in, take us to lunch, take us to happy hour, fly back. And all that mattered was that my numbers looked good and I would stay off the radar. Nobody cared what I was doing. If I wasn't meeting one-on-one with clients, I'd wear jeans to the office. But basically, I blew off work and focused on the exams. Now, when I finished the exams and I passed, I all of a sudden had a ridiculous amount of downtime and a bad Adderall addiction. And I do believe that my inability to taper that down and to unwind that played a significant role in the direction that my life went after that.
So, based off of what I read on your blog, it sounded like this all kind of started off innocently enough. At least as innocent as smoking a bowl of meth in a stripper's car can start off as. What made you want to get in the car with her in the first place and try it?
I don't remember giving it a lot of pre-thought at the time. It was something I did on impulse. I had smoked ice before, maybe 10 years before in Dallas. I don't remember it affecting me as much as it did that time. And looking back at that point, mentally speaking, I was in a very strange and kind of a dark place, and I was seeking some type of relief, like some alleviation of this like void that I felt I had in my life. Now, it's not like I just, got frustrated and started doing drugs. I pursued woodworking. I tried to learn chess, which I learned I'm terrible at. I got into cycling. I would ride 20 miles around Houston with my headphones on. I bought a telescope and I would stargaze. I completed my own individual stock analysis reports on gaming. I tried to find some type of activity that would bring some type of relief. And I don't know why it was that it ended up being meth, but that night it wasn't a huge thing for me. Like, it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm gonna smoke meth. It was just like, yeah, let me just hit this bowl, and I remember doing this back in the day. It's not a big deal. And like where I was at that point in my life, it was just like a perfect storm for me to develop this craving and this bad addiction for that type of relief from anxiety that meth brought me at that point.
You mentioned you were in kind of a dark place. Could you elaborate more on that? Like apart from the Adderall addiction, what else was going on?
Yeah, I was killing it. I was making a bunch of money working a couple hours a day. I had a badass office on the 17th floor with a huge window overlooking the Galleria. I had a TV with HBO and cable in my office. I was a star. My ex-wife and I, we had an awesome house that we had bought in an awesome part of town. I had a dog. I had a beautiful daughter. That's supposed to be, you're supposed to be happy with that, And I don't know if it was the Adderall. I don't know. This is something that I'm still seeking, answers on, and I don't really know why, but I had some weird void and something was missing, and I don't know what it was. Looking back, some may say that some type of spirituality might have been missing. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't giving enough back. Maybe I was just too selfish. I don't know. But it was a position of being in where everybody's trying to get there. And when you get there, you know, I wasn't satisfied. And I don't know why that is. I should have been. You know what? I have had thoughts where, you know, maybe I didn't feel like I earned my way there because the Adderall felt like I was cheating with it. Like it was almost like I was an NFL player that took steroids to get where he was at. So I felt like it was so easy to pass those exams and enjoyable with the Adderall. Maybe I didn't quite earn it. Maybe I didn't have enough self-worth, but I'm not sure. But it was very odd because you're not supposed to be frustrated and that upset when, you know, that's your position in life.
So, on your blog, you mentioned after your first hit, you stayed up for 2 days straight.
Hmm.
What did you do, and how were you able to function normally if you were that strung out?
Well, I mean, keep in mind, I had been taking Adderall daily, a lot of Adderall for about 13 years up to this. I was able to go to work and I was able to go through the motions. Now, granted, I was high at the time. Maybe I wasn't hiding it as well as I think I was. I mean, I'm not sure if but like a lot of people will smoke ice and just completely skits out and completely get stuck because I feel like I had so many years of speed usage before that. It was just like I was going throughout my same day, just like having this elation and like this immense surge of dopamine going off in my brain. So it didn't cause a huge change in my daily activity, but slowly over time, as the addiction kind of snuck up on me, I got sloppier and sloppier, and it started getting worse and worse. I started lying more. I started missing things at work. I started making mistakes at work, and it just insidiously, slowly consumed everything that I cared about. And I think, I think the fact that I was on Adderall maybe put a chip on my shoulder, like, oh, I'm not addicted because, I've been taking Adderall. It's the same thing. I'm like, I can just stop and just take Adderall if I wanted to. So it wasn't like a switch that was flipped and all of a sudden I became this raving meth addict. I was able to compose myself in daily activities and I was still able to go to work um, for a decent amount of time.
Did this raise any alarm bells to anyone around you?
Um, I think that my coworkers were a bit concerned at one point. At one point, my boss, I had been making these bad mistakes, and what meth does is terrible. It forces you to lie compulsively and erratically, and it forces you to become so defensive about dumb stuff. And looking back, when you smoke meth, you're high for like multiple days. And I think on the inside, I thought that I was probably a lot more smoother than what I was on the outside. Like looking back, my coworkers had to know I had some type of substance abuse problem. But no, there was really no like concern that brought up. My ex-wife caught me, smoking it one night, and just once she did that, there's two routes I could have gone. I mean, I could have quit, or I could have, removed myself from those that I care about and gone harder in that direction. And by the time she caught me, I was already a full blown addict. I mean, I remember maybe like 2 or 3 months after starting, I realized that I had a problem, and I started to get concerned. And I was like, I just need to stop. And I was like, this is the last bowl. So I took the pipe, I smoked it, and I crushed it up. And I was like, that's it. I have to stop. And the next day, I went out and bought another one. And I was like, I have a problem. But I don't, this is a serious problem. And that was the first time, like that was a very profound day and a very profound moment in all of this, was the day that I broke the pipe. And then the next day I went and bought another one, because it's at that moment that I turned to the drug to forget about the fact that I had the problem. So it exacerbated everything quickly. And I think with addiction and with addicts, that that happens. You know, you use the drug and then you get in trouble and you don't know what to do, but you've been doing the drug. So you escape into it and it just makes everything so much worse.
How did you manage to keep yourself supplied without arousing suspicion?
It was not hard at all. You know, the girl I got it from, I text her, get it from her. If she didn't have it, she gave me a different number. It's pretty easy to get once you know one person that gets it. One person that does it is in a circle connected with a bunch of other users, and tapping into that is not very difficult when you have a lot of money.
You mentioned dealing meth at one point. Were you also cooking it, or were you just a distributor?
No, I was just a distributor. Um, I met this girl on Craigslist that ended up being a pretty big dealer, and she got her supply straight from the cartel, and had been dealing meth for like over a decade, and was deep in the game. And I went from being just like a casual smoker to all of a sudden having a higher quantity amount of the best quality of anybody that I knew, which wasn't that many people at that point in time, you know. But once, I mean, she was able to hook me up with price. I mean, we developed a connection and a friendship before I found out that she was, you know, that big of a dealer. So we had a pretty close bond. We're pretty close friends. So she gave me a hookup on pricing, and all of a sudden I now had just ounces and ounces of this stuff. And I mean, once that dealing started, you know, my network and the quality of people that I was surrounding myself with took a pretty significant decline, in terms of honest people, hardworking, educated people. I mean, now I'm dealing, and you know, dealing meth is not dealing weed. You know, these aren't all like hippies that are happy and got the munchies. You know, people that you're dealing meth to are in dark mental places and are serious addicts for the most part. So no, I never cooked it, never got into cooking it. Don't know how to cook it, but I was pretty high in the supply chain.
Did you ever have any contact with the cartel itself?
Yeah, I did actually. I would go to Dallas at times, and you know, I'd stay up there for, you know, a week, a few days, just hanging out with her. And you know, while I would do that, you know, she would have people come over, and I mean, it's like she was pretty open. You know, we were close, so she let me in on her circle of people. And one night I was hanging out at her house, and God, what was his name? I forgot. It was like Jaime, I think. She's like, Jaime's coming by, and I'd heard about this guy. I knew it was like the guy that she communicated with when she needed to re up. And she's like, they're coming by, and I was like, oh, do I need to leave? And she's like, no, no, it's fine, it's fine. So you know, I'm sitting there, and these three or four Mexican dudes that looked right around my age came walking in. I mean, nice boots. The main guy spoke perfect English. The others had pretty thick accents, but these guys look, I mean, right around my age. They're Hispanics, and they had a batch that they needed Ariel to put some cut in. So like, you know, they bring her like maybe 3 ounces of meth, and there's a filler that you get from GNC. It's like the supplement that you add to the meth that is kind of a BS filler, and it'll turn 3 ounces into 4 ounces type of a deal. So yeah, they came in. They're like, "Look, we need you to cook this up real quick," and they were they were really polite and really nice and really chill. Um, and I Ariel's like, will you run to GNC and just go get this real quick? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. She's like, I need to get started here, and I need that. And I was like, that's fine. So like I ran to GNC. So I ran an errand for the cartel, and I remember thinking, this is crazy. But we went back, and while she cooked it up, I ended up talking to the dude that came in, and it turns out that he's from LA originally, and I had lived there when I was a kid. My dad was stationed at Long Beach, and we both played basketball at the same time in the same YMCA youth league. Now we didn't remember each other, but we were both like, I was like, whoa, dude. I was like, yeah, I played in that league, and he's like, yeah, yeah, and it was kind of surreal because this guy was somebody that I could have hung out with. Like, I mean, he just chatted me up. It was cool, and like for a split second, I swear to God, I was gonna be like, so what's up, man? Y'all hiring? I was like, y'all got any jobs in middle management for me? um, I was high. I didn't know what I was really thinking, but yeah, I did actually. I mean, the system that she had in place was pretty crazy too. There's this professor, this Mexican professor that is a teacher at a university in Mexico, and that was her main like the head guy that she would talk to. Um, and he spoke English, he spoke Spanish, but if she needed like, a kilo or like a large amount, she would call him. And he had his like foot soldiers, like, they had like an apartment where they cooked it in, and they would just drop it off. And I mean, Ariel had been working with these guys for quite a long time. It was pretty fascinating to hear, just kind of like how that all worked. Um, and it was also, what's also kind of funny, she always she would get into them for like thousands of dollars, and she'd be like, oh my God, I have to pay Carlos. And she's like, I owe him like 3,000. I was like, you should probably pay them. But that's just kind of a meth character trait, always going into debt, always borrowing for money. But she usually always paid them back. Nothing ever really bad happened to her, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, I mean, Ariel is a pretty little blonde girl, white girl. I mean, real pretty. You would not expect that. And not only that, you wouldn't expect her main connect to be this professor at a university in Mexico that's like calling these shots, like coordinating distribution of methamphetamine in Dallas of large quantities. Other than that, I didn't have any other interactions or engagement with the cartel.
So going through your blog, you've done some some very, very interesting, albeit illegal, things to continue your addiction. How did that all start? Could you kind of tell the story there?
Yeah, I mean, so it kind of started out of I'll say a combination of desperation, curiosity, and necessity. Um, when I split from my ex-wife, I cashed out my 401k. I had over 200 grand in that 401k, and I had about 40 or 50 grand in stocks and mutual funds. I cashed everything out, and I blew through all of that in about 18 months to 2 years. Um, I had high credit limits on my credit cards. I had like $25,000 limits on my cards. And when I ran out of money and when I was getting close to maxing out my last credit card, um, I started thinking, wow, this is coming to an end. I was like, the party's about to end. And I think it's kind of telling of meth addiction that I didn't slow down my roll. Like, I didn't start budgeting my money thinking, oh, I need to make this last because I'm having less of it. Um, my last charge on a credit card was like for an $80 sushi meal, at some restaurant. And I was like, well, that's it. Um, Not long before that last card maxed out, I was in the process of dealing. Um, I came across kind of two separate people that I developed kind of a friendship with. In the meth circles, it's always like quote unquote friends. But one of these was Sawyer, who I blog about quite a bit, and the other one was Phil, who I also blog about quite a bit. And Sawyer was a lot like me. He had a good job. He had no previous arrest records, and had a lot of money. And he had ran out of his money before I did, but he was engaged in serious fraud, and I saw what he was doing. When I was running with Sawyer, I had money at that time, so I was doing it more because I really thought he was onto something, and to be honest, he really was. This guy's brilliant, and he had a legitimate plan. It was a three-pronged plan to turn kind of fraudulent activities into a long-term sustainable income generator. Now, you hear a lot of people talk a lot of, pie in the sky and type of, you know,
Talk a lot of game.
yeah, they talk a lot of game. When I first met him, I thought he was one of those guys, but as I got to know him, I learned he doesn't really lie about stuff like that. And so there were kind of two people that I branched off into fraud. One was Sawyer early on. That was when I still had, a decent amount of money, and I had my game room open and operating. I had an underground illegal game room going, which that kind of attracted him and brought him to me, and his fraud brought me to him. Phil, I met on the other branch of the fraud tree, and I met Phil more when I was running out of money and I needed, something to keep the party and the high going. It's really not about keeping the party going at that point. At that point, it's really just staying high. Like your whole world becomes about it. So we engaged in pretty significant fraud activities, both through Sawyer and both through Phil.
You talk about Sawyer being this brilliant criminal mastermind type. Why did you not try and emulate the same things that he was doing? I mean, obviously they were working. Why didn't you do it yourself?
He had a lot going on that that I just couldn't keep up with. Like I thought of myself as a fairly, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty smart. Sawyer's one of the first people I've ever met, and I've gone to like, I've met my sister's Ivy League friends. I went to a good school. I went to a University of Pennsylvania, like pre-college program in high school. Sawyer was the first person that I ever met that I could not keep up with. Like I was like, wait a minute. I was like, wait, man. I was like, what do you mean you're doing? Like, what do you mean you've incorporated? Like I know this stuff. I'm a CFA. I'm a CFP. Like, what are you doing? Like, what is this Duns and Bradstreet? Like he went a mile a minute, and I identified something in him early on, and I'm not gonna. I mean, he is quite literally brilliant and the smartest person I've ever met. So when we paired up, I told him. I mean, I remember we're sitting in his house, and it was like after we'd gone on one of these jet trips, and I was like, Sawyer, I was like, look, man, I'm just gonna latch on to you, and I'm gonna ride your coattails, and I'll be like your number two dude, and you're on to something here. You're getting close to actually like doing this, to creating this entity that would be able that is an established front, and has a legitimate, real possibility of bringing in income that could last us. That the sky's the limit type stuff. And I never tried to like hang with him because I just couldn't. I mean, I knew what he was doing, but the things that he would do are like he would just walk up to somebody and blatantly lie to them, and when they busted him, he would lie even more and just keep lying until it got so awkward that I couldn't. I would have my hand in my face, just like, oh my god, dude, let's go. I can't believe you're doing this. Like So the bottom line is I couldn't hang with him. I mean, I knew what he was doing. I knew how to do it. But even high, I did not have the balls to be able to lie and BS somebody to the extent that he was able to do it with ease. Like, I just didn't have that skill.
Did your family know what you were up to this whole time, or did you keep it low profile around them?
When you're in heavy meth addiction, you pretty much ghost everybody that cares about you. At least that's what I did. They knew I was up to no good. They had no idea the extent of it. They didn't know that we were, engaged in fraud at the levels that we were at. And I would tell them half lies. I would be like, I told them about Sawyer. And I was like, look, we're starting up this company, and, Sawyer's doing this. And I was like, look, we're on a jet. And, I took a picture. Here we go, and I pretty much just did not engage with them. I like there's too much guilt there. There's too much, for me to like have to deal with mentally that I couldn't, because I was just throwing my life away, and I was in this like ball of fire, just driving into the earth, and it's like I couldn't talk to them honestly, to anybody honestly that really knew me or cared about me. So no, they really had no idea what I was doing.
By this point, you'd been riding pretty high on the fraud schemes and the drugs, and by and large getting away with it. At least from what I read anyway. What changed to make it all fall apart?
Everything kind of changed in the span of 1 week. I was at a Verizon up in where was it? It's in Liberty County, which is in North Houston, and we were doing a scam where we take a fake ID, we go in there, we open a new account, and we leave with like a few iPhones. The guy at the store took the fake ID to the back, and I told the guy I was with, yo, dude, he just took the ID in the back, and he's like, let's go. They ended up calling the cops, and we weren't able to get away before the cops got there. So that was my first arrest. That was one night in jail. My dad bailed me out, and I went back home for like a day or two and told them that I was going back to Houston, and that I was gonna go back to work, and I was straightening up when really I was just going right back into the fraud. So that arrest happened on like a Friday or Saturday. 7 days later was my second arrest, which was the Airbnb scam that I broke my leg in. And that day, that's pretty much where it all collapsed on me. So in the span of a week, I went from having no arrests, no charges on my records, to now being charged with 3 separate felonies in 2 counties.
Could you talk a little bit more about the Airbnb scam? Because that sounds like it was kind of a catalyst for everything here. It sounds like that a lot of what happened with the rest of your life kind of centers around that.
Yeah, it definitely does. Like that single day was the turning point for everything. That was really like, it's over. And this was something that we had never done before. Usually we have our go-to scams. Like you find something that works and you repeat it. You improve the process over time and you get really good at it. You have your bread and butter scams. So we go on the deep web quite a bit, for social security numbers, for logins. I mean, there's so much available on the deep web. It's unreal. So we went on the deep web, and there's this site where for literally $2 or $3 in Bitcoin, you could buy people's logins, and they have logins for everything from Bank of America to Wells Fargo to Best Buy, Amazon, PayPal, Groupon, Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats, Starbucks, pretty much any company that has any type of consumer finance lending program. So, there's so much to play with in there that, we'd get stuck on there for hours sometimes and be like, hey, maybe we could try this. Maybe we could try this. So I saw Airbnb in there and I was like, let me just try this. It's only like $2.50. So I bought some lady's login for $2.50. They send it to you right away. So it's like, okay. I was like, let me see if this works, because it doesn't always work. A majority of the time, it is a good store. We were at a good site. There's a lot of bad ones out there. We had found a good one where 70 to 80% of the purchases that we made were good links. So I bought her login. I go to Airbnb. I log in, and I was like, okay, I'm in. That password was still good. There was no geographical identification security process. There was no 2-step authorization. So I'm in her Airbnb. She lives in California. She rents out a property in California, and she's got a credit card. She has an American Express stored online. And, I'm like just messing around with it. I'm like, maybe I can book something in Houston. So I find a condo in Houston at the Mosaic Apartments down by the Med Center. And it was like $600 for like 3 days. So, I messaged the guy ahead of time before I actually book it. And I'm logged in under this lady's account. So he thinks he's talking to some lady in California that rents houses out. And I said, hey, my husband is about to land. This is on chat, on the Airbnb chat. I was like, my husband's about to land, and our plans where we were staying fell through. If I book this today, is there any way that he can get in there early? And the guy's like, yeah, yeah, no problem. He's like, I'm getting ready to leave on a flight, so I won't be here, but I can leave the keys for him at the front desk. He's like, if you book it and pay for it, he can come, right now. So I said, yeah, perfect. That's fine. At this point, I still didn't know if Airbnb was going to let me process the payment. Now, where Airbnb failed is they did not ask for the CVV code or any other type of authorization when I clicked pay on Airbnb. I don't know if it's changed since then, but with this lady's stored credit card, I was able to pay for and it accepted the $600 rental. So it went through immediately. And the guy's like, yep, I got it. All right, it'll be up there. So I left the keys at the front desk. So I tell the two people I'm with, Phil and Marie, I'm like, hey guys, yo, this guy's got his keys there. He's got this luxury apartment. We got it for 3 days. I was like, let's go check it out. So we get in the car, in Phil's car, and it's about 15 minutes away from where we were at. Now, before we left, I actually set up a whole alibi where if somebody were to catch us in there, I had set up a fake discussion with a fake renter saying that somebody had rented an Airbnb and they couldn't get a refund and they're offering it for cash. So I made a fake Craigslist posting and I sent fake texts back and forth. So I told Phil and Marie before we left, I said, look, if somebody comes in and catches us, we tell them that we found this ad on Craigslist for somebody that gave it to us for cash because they couldn't get a refund. And here's the messages going back and forth. So if that happens, that's what we say. And Phil, Marie and I laugh about this now. Phil goes, no, we're not going to need that. He's like, no one goes to jail on my watch. And I was like, all right, dude, whatever. So we go down to the Mosaic. We walk up to the security desk, the reception desk on the first floor. And I say, hey, yeah, someone should have left a key up here. He's like, yep, here it is. Didn't check any ID. We had given him a fake ID for a fake license that we have. So I didn't even need to use that. He just hands me an envelope with the key to the dude's apartment in it. He's on the 10th floor. Now, going up there, we had no intention of ripping this guy off. Like, I wasn't expecting, most Airbnbs are pretty empty, there's not a lot of stuff there. So I was mostly just doing this so that I could have the fob, which gave us access to the apartment grounds because they have like an awesome pool and like a gym. And I was homeless at this time. So I was like, well, at the very least, I'm just going to keep the fob to the grounds and we'll at least be able to get in here whenever we want. But let's go check out this place. Let's see what it's like. So we go up to the 10th floor. We walk right into his apartment, pretty nice, nothing like super fancy, but it was definitely luxury. And in his bathroom closet, he's got this smart lock on there. And, I try to open it and it's unlocked. And I open this closet door and inside are just boxes and boxes from like Amazon. So I look at Phil Marie and we start going through it, and he's got Bose speakers in there, he's got a laptop, he's got golf clubs, he's got a Dyson vacuum, he's got pretty much all of this very expensive stuff. On top of that, he had this really cool bomber jacket from Air Force Two, and we looked at each other and we said, let's take it. Looking back on that, it's I hate telling, it's a hard story to tell because it's such a scummy and terrible thing to do to somebody, just like, go through all their stuff and think that you have a right to take it. So I feel a lot of guilt about doing that. I realize how messed up of a thing that is to do to someone. And if I thought of like three tweakers rummaging through my personal possessions, thinking that they could just help themselves, and have no recourse and no, just get away with it. I mean, I feel bad about what we did. So as we're packaging all this stuff up. We've got enough stuff. I've got like a backpack full of stuff. I've got the jacket. I say, all right, let's get out of here. We need to leave. And Phil says, well, I saw some stuff in the kitchen. I think I want to grab some of that stuff too. So, I was like, dude, let's get out of here. I mean, like, we have no reason to be here. He's like, you said he was out of town anyway, right? He's gone. And I was like, oh, all right, fine. And not more than like 5 minutes after that, boom, 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 someone's banging on the door. And all three of us just completely freeze and just look at each other. And, I tried to whisper. I was like, all right, remember the alibi. I was like, remember it. And as I'm walking up to open the door just opens and flings open. And there's this dude, probably about 10 years my senior, this white guy. He's got his cell phone out and he's taking a video of us. And he's pointing it at us almost like a gun. And he's super amped up. I mean, he's like, back up, back up, back up. And he's like, get on your knees, get on your knees. He's like, hands up. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I was like, it's all right. We're okay to be here. I was like, calm down, calm down. We got this thing from Craigslist, dude. And I swear, for a split second, I need to ask him one day, because for a split second, he kind of was like, oh. And then he was like, no. And I look over at Phil, and Phil is like starting to like get this like super intense look on his face. He starts like charging up his arms, like pumping them up and down, like sneering like at the guy. And out of nowhere, he just sprints through him, knocks him over, runs down the hallway. And I'm like, oh crap. I was like, I guess we're running now. So, within the span of 30 seconds, we went from thinking, that we're going to get away, and all of a sudden this guy bangs on the door, and now Phil's running down the hall in front of me. I ran past the guy and took off down behind Phil. And this guy, I think he chased us. I'm not sure if he chased us or stayed back with Marie. But either way, Phil and I start sprinting down the hallway. Phil stops at the elevator, and I'm like, yeah, right, dude. So he pushes the button for like a second, and I pass him, and then he's now running behind me, and the dude, I think, was following us. So at the end of the hallway, there's an exit, fire emergency exit, 10 flights of stairs. I go sprinting down these stairs. When I get to the bottom floor, I bust out the emergency exit door. I can look left and I can look right, and straight ahead of me, there's like this bridge, and there's like a hill coming down, and it looked like it was maybe an 8-foot drop. And for some reason, I thought they're not going to think to look for me there. So I ran straight ahead. I hopped over this little bridge that looked like it was maybe 8 feet high, and it ended up being about a 20-foot drop. I remember jumping and falling, and my hand was like brushing against the wall. And the second I remember thinking, man, my hand is like falling for, I'm feeling a lot of wall here. I hit the ground and everything goes black for like a second. And when I try to stand up, I try to step on my left leg, and this like electronic shock of pain just like went coursing through my brain and my body, and my leg is now broken. It was a multiple pylon fracture. So that happens when you fall straight down on it, and like the tibia smashes into like the ankle, and it looked like an NFL style break. It was just kind of like dangling off to the side. So I'm like, oh my God, my leg's broken. I was like, okay, just hide, hide now and think about it, for a minute. So I landed on like this little sidewalk that was next to the bayou, and I rolled into the water in the bayou, and I just covered myself up as much as I could with like branches and twigs and like trash, and I just put it all on myself, and I floated there in the water, face up. Looking back, I really am curious like how hidden I was. Like I kind of have this this feeling that I was not very well hidden, like, and I just thought I was, but either way, I'm floating face up in the bayou, and it's February, so it's cold. That water's cold, and I'm underneath like all these sticks and branches, and I'm like breathing, and I can feel like my breath just like, and I'm just like floating there with a broken leg, and I start shivering, and I don't hear anybody coming for me. I don't hear any cops. I don't hear anybody searching. Um, so I think I'm, okay. They haven't found me, and I'm doing all right. But I start shivering, and then I really started like shaking, like from the cold of the water. And I was like, okay, this isn't gonna work. I was like, I need to get out of this water, and I need to think of something else. So I pulled myself up on the ledge that I had fallen on, and I'm just kind of sitting there looking at my leg, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm like, I could crawl to the other side of the bayou, and I could crawl out, and I can wave somebody down, and I'll tell them that I got jumped and that I got robbed, but not to call the cops. um, and I'm thinking, yeah, that could work. As soon as I had that thought, I hear like this voice from up above, and it goes, "There he is." And I turned around and I looked up, and there's an HPD officer sticking his head over the ledge, and I was like, oh, I was like, that's it, you know. And I lifted my leg up to the cop, and I was like, look, my leg. He's like, all right, all right. He's like, don't go anywhere, and um, he ended up calling the fire department. I rolled back onto the ledge that I had fallen on, and I was just laying there, and I was just holding my leg up, and I was just thinking, that's it. I was like, I'm gonna remember that jump the rest of my life. My leg's broken. I'm going to jail. I was like, it's all over. And that's actually when that guy, the guy whose place we broke into, he took a picture of me. So I have that picture on the blog, and it's me laying there with my broken leg. And Houston Fire Department ended up coming with a fire truck, and they had to use a crane off of the fire truck and lower a mountain climber basket. So one fireman went down into the bayou. He loaded me up into this basket, and now I'm being raised out of the bayou with my broken leg. And all of these people at the Mosaic Apartments are out on their balconies, like with their cameras, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so like messed up. I cannot believe this is happening. So yeah, I ended up I broke my leg. I have 12 screws and 3 plates in my left leg now, and that was the day that everything just was like, that's it. This changes everything. I can't continue. It's more or less over for me with this.
So what happened after that?
So I went to Ben Taub, and
That's a hospital.
yeah, sorry. Ben Taub is the county hospital in Houston's Med Center. I mean, we're already in the Med Center, so it was like a 2-3 minute drive in the ambulance. And as an addict going into the hospital, I mean, this is kind of a messed up thing to say, but I had an absolute blast at that hospital. Like, I was just loaded up on so much pain medicine, and was so, I mean, I was having these trippy visualizations, and it's really messed up. But I was like, this is I was like, this is pretty cool. It's just, I think I was still in denial at that point as to what was going to happen. Plus, I was also doped up pretty good on a bunch of pain meds. But I came to. They put me under. They took me to the emergency room, and they had to reset my leg. And I just remember I remember this doctor coming, and they got some like towel, and they knocked me out. I don't remember much after that. I came to in like this recovery room, and my leg was all bandaged up. And in Ben Taub Hospital, I don't know what, like, this was like some type of street group recovery room. This was an absolute madhouse. Like, I woke up on a cot, in a room with like 20 or 30 other people there. And it was like chaos. Like people were screaming. I guess in Ben Taub, like they have this wing where they put all of the homeless or crazy people or the criminals. But I came to, and I had a cop that was assigned to me that was sitting up against the wall. There was like 3 or 4 cops there that I guess are assigned to whoever their patient criminals were. So I came to, and I ended up staying 3 days in Ben Taub Hospital, and I underwent like 2 surgeries. I had a private room, and I had 24-hour surveillance by a cop there. So, like by the third or fourth day, like they would come in shifts, and they would just sit there for 8 hours, and I was like, man, I'm in trouble. um, so I was supervised there by a cop on like the third or the fourth day. This is now around Valentine's Day of 2017. I went in there on the 11th, and I think I got out on the 14th. So they had to like officially book me and arrest me now. So they had to get this like transportation van from the city and wheelchair me out into it, and they took me to like this one jail for like processing, and then I got booked into Harris County Jail, and I was in there for about 2 weeks before I got bonded out that time.
So, what happened to Phil and Marie in the immediate aftermath of this?
All of us got caught. In fact, Phil and Marie were actually sitting in the cop car when I was being raised out of the bayou. I don't know where they caught Phil, but I imagine it was on the first floor. Phil had valeted his car at the apartments that we were at. And I remember when he did it, I was like, dude, you sure you don't want to park across the street in case like we have to go or something? Like, you really want to valet your car? He's like, yeah, man, it'll be fine, dude. And I was like, jeez. So, he was going to get caught regardless because he had valeted his car and they had him on camera walking in with us. But I think he might have got caught on the first floor. Marie ended up running down the street, and she told me that the dude ended up chasing her. Either apartment security or the guy from the apartment himself chased her, and she made it across the street to like this gas station. And, the dude caught up to her there, and she like tried to scream and say like, he's trying to touch me, like tried to pull that card. But, yeah, all 3 of us got caught. All 3 of us went to jail for that. We all got burglary of habitation charges, and I got, possession of identifying information and tampering with government documents because I had fake IDs and the fake credit cards on me too.
How did he know you were there? Just out of curiosity.
I never found out what I think happened, and that is something that I do plan on asking him one day because, I told you I've communicated with him. I think that American Express noticed a charge that was outside of a regular spending pattern for the lady, and I think they notified her. And I believe that she messaged the guy on Airbnb and said, whoever's in your apartment right now is not supposed to be there. I have a vague memory of my lawyer saying something like that, and I think that's what happened.
So you mentioned on your blog how your relationship with Phil kind of fell apart at this point.
Yeah.
You were surprised at the time, but are you still surprised now that things sort of fell apart with him?
I'm surprised at the way that he handled it. The way it went down, I can see why he would think that I played a role in his arrest for something that was unrelated. But what he did that was really messed up, and that I never really forgave him for doing this, is while I was locked up, he had access to all of my possessions. And he basically took all of my stuff and just started giving it out to people and giving it out to these like girls, tweaker girls, and was telling everybody that I snitched on him. And like, I couldn't believe it. Like, when I got out of jail, I was like trying to reach him and he was just ignoring me. And somebody else had told me, that when I got out of jail, like all these cops showed up at his place, and like this is what really upsets me is like I was told that Phil Phil heard from an inside and reliable source that you snitched on him. And I was like, that is absolutely ridiculous. He's skitzing out. He's just paranoid. He's high. Um, so my issue with Phil is if you really think I did that, like, don't just ignore me and just hand my stuff out and start blasting my name. I mean, like, be a man and at least talk to me and tell me, why you're doing this, why you've just excluded me. Because he completely sold me out. I tried to we ended up hooking up later after a friend of ours died, and I think he kind of felt bad for me, so like we reconnected, and I tried to get over that, but I was never able to get over that. Like he paid me money and gave me a bunch of ice, and like he made it right from a financial and like a possession point of view, but yeah, that our relationship was forever tainted after that. Like we never recovered from that. I was never able to let that go.
You mentioned the friend who died. Would that be Raquel?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Would you be comfortable talking about her story a little bit?
Yeah. So Raquel was an escort that I met through a mutual escort. Actually, Paisley. Paisley was a really good friend of mine, and I met her through her. And at that time, I was dealing. So we exchanged numbers, and I started dealing to her. She was pretty bad, heroin addict, really bad. Just that was her DOC was heroin, and I talk about this on the blog, how in the tweaker world, there are certain relationships that you develop where you just kind of run with somebody in the streets for a while, and then you leave and you continue. And then there's people that you kind of develop something more than that with, like a true friendship. And I would say that Raquel and I were, we had surpassed just a drug relationship, and we're really friends. When I broke my leg and was bonded out, we had a message, and I share this on my blog. We had a conversation where she's like, are you doing dope? And I'm like, no, not right now, because I'm at home and my leg's broken. And she's like, well, why would you come back to Houston? I was like, oh, I got to come back. She's like, I mean, if you're doing good, she genuinely wanted me to try to stay out of kind of the tweaker circle and out of the whole game if I could. But I wasn't at that point. Even after I broke my leg, I wasn't ready to just stop everything. I knew I was going to go to jail for a long time, and I pretty much told myself, look, before I go to jail, I can't just sit here at my parents' house and just wait for jail and then go to jail for a year, which is what I was being told I was going to have to serve. So with about 3 months left before I was supposed to go to jail, I just dipped out of my parents' house. I pawned a camera. She bought me a bus ticket to come down to Houston from Dallas to meet up with her. And, we were kind of running together again. And I had a broken leg this time, but I was on crutches. And not shortly after I had rejoined her after breaking my leg, we were hanging out, and she went into the bathroom, and it's what she always does. She always played her music. She loves the Bumpin' Uglies, this like kind of ska band, kind of sounds like Sublime-ish, but so she would basically go into the restroom for like an hour at a time, shooting up H, taking a shower, doing her makeup. It wasn't uncommon for her to go in there for long stretches of time. So I'm sitting on the bed on my phone, and she's in there playing her music, and I forgot why, but I had to leave to go drop something off or something. So I get on my crutches and I start hopping out, and I kind of tap on the door, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna head out for a bit. And I just hear her music playing, And I knock harder. I was like, yo, I was like, I'm leaving. And there's no response. And I'm like, oh. So the hotel bathroom door is one of those doors that has a little hole in it. And I turned around, I grabbed a hanger, and I straightened out the hanger. And I stuck it through that hole so that it unlocked the door. And when the door started to open, it immediately got caught on this elastic cord. And on the wall of the bathroom next to the door, there was one of those hair dryers, and she had wrapped the hair dryer cord around the base of the hair dryer and the handle of the door. So it was like she like tried to rope it off. So when I tried to open it, it's like tied, and I'm like, what the hell? And so I barge in there, and when I walked in, she's got the shower running, and she's laying face up in the water. Her face was like maybe an inch below the surface, and there's like just these little bubbles coming out of her nose, and the shower was on, so it was like splashing on her, and I hopped over to the tub, and I was like, Raquel, and I was like, Raquel, and I kind of lift her up, and her head rolls back, and her eyes kind of her eyelids kind of opened, and like her eyes had rolled back into her head, and she wasn't saying anything. I mean, I thought she was kidding at first. I thought she was like messing with me. But as soon as I like lifted her up and saw that she was unresponsive, I like stood up, and I just backed up, and I looked in the room, and she had left a journal out on the toilet, with like a ribbon down the middle to the entry, and it was like open booked, and the ribbon was kind of marking, whatever that entry was. There were syringes. She had like the band was around her arm, and it pretty much looked like she was in the tub and did a shot of heroin and just kind of slipped under the surface. And immediately like your brain goes into like this reptilian mode, this fight or flight type response. And like for a couple seconds, I was like, what are you doing? What do you do? I was like, do I just leave? I was like, no, I was like, you can't leave. I was like, what are you doing? You got to help her, help her. What are you waiting for? So I made sure that her head was out of the tub, and then I hopped, because I have a broken leg. I hop out into the hallway, and the maids were out there, these two Mexican maids, and I was like, come here. I was like, my friend, she needs help. I was like, help me. I hop back into the bathroom, and I go to lift Raquel out, and the two maids, they just stop at the door, frozen, like completely stunned, completely shocked, like they just freeze. And I'm like trying to get Raquel out of the tub, and I'm like, help me, and they don't do anything. They're just standing there. So I lifted Raquel out of the tub with this broken leg and put her on the ground, and I just started doing CPR on her. I took a CPR class in middle school, and I just remember like 5 to 1, like do 5 compressions and then like 1 breath, I think is what it was. So I just started pumping her chest, and when I pinched her nose and I breathed into her mouth, it was a very, very unique sensation. I mean, I can almost feel it. It's like a wet sponge is almost like you feel her lungs rise with as I blow air into her mouth. And on the exhale, all of this water and blood like just came bubbling out of her nose and her mouth. So I thought I thought it was working. I thought, that's good, like get this water out. I see in the movies, people can live without, they can drown and then they bring them back. So I thought I was doing a good thing here. The maid, or not the maid, at this point, I think it was one of the hotel workers brought me a phone with 911 operator on it. And I was like, yeah, my friend. I was like, she was doing heroin and she slipped under the water. She's not breathing. They're like, okay, just do the chest compressions. Don't worry about breathing air in her lungs. So I just start doing the chest compressions. Um, Probably less than 10 minutes later, the paramedics show up. They take over. So I kind of back up and I start grabbing like the syringes and the drugs and trying to hide them and put them in my pocket. Um, they strap this contraption on her, and it's like a pump that just beats her chest automatically, and they get her heart beating again. And so I breathed a sigh of relief. I'm like, yeah. I was like, so I actually stepped back, and when they told me they got her heart going again, I took a picture of her, and yeah, I have that picture on my blog, and it's her on the stretcher with the machine wrapped up, and I took her to the hospital, and she was unresponsive. I mean, she was brain dead. Her heart was beating, but she never regained consciousness, and she ended up passing away. Which is really sad. I mean, she had a small kid. She was trying to do her best. She was battling addiction. She had some demons that she was fighting with, and I mean, I talked to her mom and I talked to her ex-husband and her baby daddy throughout a lot of this, and yeah. So I mean, not long after breaking my leg, that all went down, and I lost a pretty close friend, that was loyal, that was cool, that was funny, that was hot. I mean, she had a lot of things going for her. She was really smart, and that was another thing that happened quickly after breaking my leg that is helping me to like not be tempted to go like back that direction and back into that type of lifestyle.
You lost another friend as well. Could you tell me a little about Jess?
Yeah. So Jessica was I had opened up a game room. It's kind of an illegal underground gambling game room, and my partner in that used to date Jess, and Jess was a good friend, good friend of ours. Again, a heavy drug user. She was about 22 years old or 21 when I met her, and I mean, she was a hustler. She was caught up in the same type of fast life that all of us were. Because she's pretty, and young, she was able to kind of hustle up. I mean, she had a nice car. She had an apartment on her own. She had, furniture. She was making pretty good money. And at one point, during this whole fiasco, my meth dealer, Ariel, had gotten me into DMT. I didn't want to do it. I was very like, look, I don't want to trip. I don't need, a mental journey into my psyche right now with all the messed up stuff that I'm doing. And, I'm like, I'm good. But Ariel got me like messed up on a bunch of GHB, and I ended up trying the DMT, and it's kind of indescribable. A DMT trip is just, it's amazing. It's hard to describe in words, but I ended up extracting DMT, and I got into this whole DMT phase where, I mean, I've done over 20 extractions, and I've smoked DMT countless times. I was a big advocate of this, this substance, and Jess had heard about that, and I remember that this was literally on Christmas Eve. I think it was Christmas Eve of 2016, and I was in a hotel room by myself, and I was just kind of feeling depressed because it was Christmas Eve, and I was just this tweaker all by himself at this night, and it tends to drive you deeper into the drug. I just did more ice to not have to deal with that reality of being alone on Christmas. So I was kind of in a bad place. And my game room partner, Kevin, called me up, and he's like, "Yo, man, Jess is trying to get some DMT." He's like, "You have any?" And I was like, "No, man." I was like, "I have the root for it. So to extract DMT, you need to have this certain root. It's from a plant It's called Mimosa hostilis, and there's a whole like chemical extraction process that is undergone to produce the DMT powder. And I only had the root. And so I told Kevin, I was like, nah, man, I was like, I don't have any, but I have the root. So, if I have a kitchen, I can extract it, but I don't have a place to do that with. So he's like, all right, well, Jess is going to call you. So Jess calls me up, and I'm like, Merry Christmas, and yeah, I end up telling her, look, Jess, I can extract it. It's going to take a while, but if I can use your apartment, I can do it there. So she invited me over, and I liked Jess. I mean, she was really nice, really cool, really sweet. We never really had any like arguments or disagreements, which is kind of rare in the tweaker world. Like Raquel and I would sometimes get, you know, high and angry and just kind of, argue about inconsequential things, but Jess was always pretty chill. And because Jess was, hot and she was broken up with my game room partner at the time, I was like, yo, this girl's cool. I kind of exploited the fact that she didn't know anything about the DMT extraction process. And, I basically lengthened out every step by like multiple hours. And, again, at this time I'm dealing. So, when I came over, I have a bunch of ice, I have a bunch of GHB, so it's not like, we're just sitting there bored. But Jess got all interested into the extraction process. It was like a science experiment. She was curious. So I showed her how it worked. I mean, we went shopping for the jars, for the turkey basters, for all the supplies. I mean, you can get everything from like Home Depot and like a Goodwill store. So she and I were both alone on that Christmas, and we kind of bonded over DMT. And after I had extracted it, the last step is to like scrape it off of this glass plate with like a razor, and it's almost like putting the frosting on a cake that you've baked. This is a similar type of excitement. So I let her scrape it off, and we smoked it, and she loved it as I loved it. It really is just an immensely beautiful and bizarre and mind-altering trip that only lasts like 10 or 15 minutes, and then you're right back to normal. It's not too intense, so you can control how hard you want to trip. But anyways, from that Christmas day, like we made a pact. We're like, all right, every Christmas, we're gonna get together. We're gonna have DMT Christmas, and just was always like I feel like that night, like we bonded and we had a special friendship and a connection to where she would let me come over and stay with her if I needed a place to stay for a couple days. She had an apartment complex that had like an office suite. And if I didn't have a place to run fraud, I would go use that. And she never told me no. Like I was like, hey, can I come over and use your office lounge? And she was like, yeah. Like she never told me no. And Jess was she was 21. She was big on heroin, and her mom had passed away a few years ago from I think it was cancer or something. So it was pretty much her and her dad. She had another stepsister, but her and her dad were really close. And I met her dad on multiple occasions. He was like this old hippie looking dude, long hair, sunglasses. He was kind of old to be her father, but really just chill guy. And again, just was just a very beautiful person and very cool and nice, and we never had any negativity brought in our relationship. But when I got out of jail, so I ended up, I got arrested. I broke my leg. I ran around for a couple months before going in to serve. I was supposed to serve a year behind bars. I ended up having to only do 6 months. So when I got out of jail in January of 2018, I believe. I was talking to Paisley, and I hadn't talked to her in a while, and she's like, "Hey, did you hear what happened to Jess?" And I was like, "Uh-oh." I was like, "What happened?" I was like, "Did she overdose on H?" I remember asking that, thinking that. And she's like, "No, no, no. Her and her dad and some dude she was with got blown away by an AR-15 by some random dude." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And she's like, "Yeah, there was a triple homicide. And this dude that she knew walked into her house, into her dad's house, where her dad, and I guess some dude that she was with at the time were, and shot all three of them." And I was like, "What?" And I didn't really. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! Like that is just ridiculous." And sure enough, like there's a bunch of news articles on there and news reports. It happened right after Hurricane Harvey. And yeah, like Jess and her dad, this, I don't know anything about the guy that shot him. I mean, I have an idea what happened. I mean, if I had to guess, I'm guessing this guy hooked up with her and then caught feelings and got jealous and high on meth and just, flipped a gasket. But yeah, this guy that shot him, and he's pretty much locked up for life right now. And he actually, my game room partner Kevin had his car. That Kevin was in jail at the time that this happened too, and just had his car. And this guy, that after he shot these three, took my game room partner's car up to Dallas, and he never got that car back. But they ended up arresting him and catching him in Dallas and charging him with 3 counts of capital murder. So yeah, that was just weird. Again, it was another, it's just another type of issue. It's like another type of event that happens in those types of circles that, there's so many different ways that people that are living in that fast type of life can get got. I mean, so that's just another instance that helps seal the fact that, I'm not driven to return to that lifestyle. And, that's just, it's just bizarre. And she was a really cool girl, and for that to happen, I just hope it went quick.
So you've mentioned a number of people here: Ariel, Marie, Paisley, Sawyer, Phil. Have you had much contact with them, or do you know where they are?
Yeah, pretty much all of them. Phil is, and also these are all like pseudonyms for their names, but their names are very similar. But Phil is, Phil's on the run right now. I haven't talked to him in like at least a year. Last time I talked to him, he said he was running an Ethereum farm, which sounds exactly like something he would do, but not actually like be successful at it. But yeah, he has warrants out for his arrest in Texas, and the last I heard, he was moving to California with some girl, and I don't know if he's gotten caught, but he will eventually. It's inevitable. He's already done 2 years in prison, so he's got charges right now. He never went for the burglary thing, and then there was another thing that he got arrested on and didn't report to jail. So he's on the run right now, and he's pretty much screwed. Paisley I actually saw after I got out, and she was off of ice, which was really cool. I don't know if she still is, but I haven't talked to her in a long time. But she found some dude that she met at a game room. It seems pretty cool. The dude isn't a tweaker, and she seems happy. I mean, I see her post on Facebook. She's got a couple dogs that she loves, and seems like she's doing well. Ariel's in jail right now. She's been locked up for a couple years. She got arrested while I was locked up doing my time, and from her charges online, it sounds like they just busted her in her car or in her room, because she's got 3 different controlled substance charges, If I had to guess, it'd probably be ice, GHB, and Xanax, probably, or DMT. But so she had three controlled substance charges. She had possession of identifying information, which is like credit cards. And then she has a tampering with government documents. So they caught her with fake IDs. And yeah, she had also done time before. She got sentenced to 4 years and did like two. So she's locked up right now, and I don't think that she's going to get out anytime soon. I haven't reached out to her. I may just kind of pop in on her one day. I'm not sure, but I really don't think she's going to be getting out anytime soon. Marie and I actually dated for about a year after we both got out of jail because she was there too for the Airbnb, and we were kind of there for each other in early recovery, and I think we kind of leaned on each other a lot to help just get us through that point in our lives. We broke up a while back, and she is actually doing really good. She's getting like straight A's now. She went back to school. She's living with her dad and her brother, and she wants to be an accountant, and she's pretty book smart. So she's doing really well. And then I think Sawyer's in jail too. Yeah, I actually talk to Sawyer about once a week, and I have he's been locked up for a year now, and he doesn't know this, but his mom told me that they're trying to get him for like 25 years, and he has no idea that he's looking at that amount of time. I don't know if his mom was being over dramatic or not, but he's telling me that his lawyer's looking like he might get out soon. So I don't really know what is going on as far as how long he's going to be locked up. But I told him, I was like, look, man, I was like, you're one of the smartest people I met. I was like, you did great things before you were on meth. You did amazing things when you were on meth. I was like, if you can get out of jail and just not go back into that life, like you're going to do something awesome. And, I'd like to be there for that. Cause I still think I could ride his coattails. So I kind of believe in him, which is weird, but, he's just, he is that brilliant in my mind. But, what's pretty cool is with the blog, I shot out an email to my subscribers, and I was like, hey, Sawyer's locked up. He's kind of bored right now. Does anybody want to communicate or pen pal with him? And, some people did. So he's got some people that call him and that have actually been kind enough to put money on his books. So, I kind of screened them. I made sure that anybody that reached out to him was not going to be like a bad influence as far as I could tell. But yeah, Sawyer's in Harris County right now. He's actually in the same pod that I was in when I was there. And yeah, that's pretty much everybody right now.
Well, you've gone through a lot in a relatively short amount of time. Do you ever wonder what life would be like now if you'd never gone to that stripper's car that afternoon?
Uh-huh. I don't think about it in terms like that. I think about what my life would be like if I had tapered down my addiction in a more controlled manner, and if I was able to control my Adderall usage more than just that, that one time where I started meth. I honestly don't think that if I would have done meth, I think alcoholism would have been prevalent because I was drinking a lot of liquor. I don't think that I was able, if I didn't stop on my own or like make a concentrated effort to reduce my substance abuse, I don't see myself continuing to have been able to kind of work and make a lot of money and continue on a path of straight and narrow. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think about that every day. I live with my parents now, I have a limp. Like I have a brace on my leg right now. Now the coronavirus is around and I can't go to the gym and do my elliptical like I do every day. So I jog instead to get my cardio. And now my leg hurts because I'm not used to jogging. And I have this constant reminder, like my coworkers now, when I first started working there, this girl's like, "Oh, you got a pimp walk. You look at your swagger." And she's like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you broke your leg. I'm so sorry." And I was like, "Yeah, it's okay." Um, but yeah, I have a lot of reminders in my life right now reminding me every day what happened and why I am where I am today. So absolutely, I think about, where I should be or what could be, and what isn't.
Is there a part of you that ever wants to go back to that world?
Yeah, no. As an addict, I need to have a healthy fear of slipping back into that life. Anytime that you kind of get cocky in your sobriety and you think, "Oh man, yeah, I was a meth addict, but I beat it," that's kind of like the first step to making a bad decision. So, I some parts of me do miss that kind of bucking the system and living outside of social norms and throwing off the shackles of like common decency and doing things that make sense. But I can't go back to that. I mean, there's no good end game for any of that. Like, there's no good way that ends other than with pain and regret and like further addictive problems. So I don't really miss it. And when I'm blogging, I try to be cognizant of not romanticizing it and not trying to make it like it was something cool. But it was so many crazy things that happened in such a short amount of time, and for me to just walk around with all of that pent up inside of me and not get it out and just be like, look, this is what we did and it was crazy, and um it ended poorly for all of us. You know um so yeah, I mean, I don't want to go back to that life, and a lot of that is because I can't. I don't have it in me. I can't let Raquel's death, Jess's death. I can't let this broken leg, not affect me and not be reason enough to not go back into it. Like when I did it once, it was like for some reason in my addict mind, it was okay because it was that one time. It was that one time I just pissed my life away. If I go back to it now and if I'm smoking ice and smoking meth, it's not cool. Like it's not new and exciting. It's depressingly, you know, a problem. So I'm aware of that, and I try to have this balance of healthy fear and then a balance of confident sobriety. It's kind of a tricky balance. But yeah, no, I don't have any plans to go back to that life. It's just it's too short lived with no end game and losers all around. I mean, everybody loses that tries to do that stuff.
Do you try and do any other addiction recovery work with people who are going through something similar?
Um, I do a lot on Reddit. I'm pretty active in the addiction and the recovery subreddits. I share my postings on there quite a bit. I have a lot of people reach out to me from my blog, people that are in similar circumstances or have family members going through meth addiction. A handful of people just email me and just can connect and relate to somebody messing up their life, on an epic scale and being honest about it. Um, I try to help everybody that reaches out to me, and I try to make sure that I listen to what they're saying. Um, when I was in my run, I can't think of any combination of words or letters that I would have read on a screen that would have stopped my addiction, but I'd sure like to try to find that for somebody. And so when I talk to people now, I try, first of all, I say, look, I'm not a recovery counselor. I have no formal education in any of this. I'm just a fellow recovering addict, but here's my insight. And I try to help them as much as possible to curtail themselves from going down the same road, and going as far as I went. And I think that's it's good for them, and I think it's healthy, for me to, it helps keep that fear alive, that you know it's easy to slip back into addiction, and the recovery rates on meth addiction in particular are very low. And there's a big stigma with addiction in general in our society, and um, I think that it's not talked about on Facebook, on Instagram. So I have a channel, and I have a forum where I can give back to people, and people can reach out to me, and you know, just bond over like addiction war stories, and try to talk about, you know, not making worse decisions than what they're making currently.
What's the usual reaction when you share stories of yours?
Um, Disbelief, um, shock. Um, I would say disbelief is probably the strongest one. Like, um, a couple times, like people will talk about jets, or, you know, I mean, my coworkers know my story, and a couple of them know everything. Maybe like one or two. Actually, the one that did kind of left our company. So really, nobody knows everything that I've done, but parts of it come up in conversation sometimes, and I mean, people just don't believe me. We had these professional poker players come into our store, and they were customers, and I talked to them, and I was like, hey, I had this game room in Alvin. I was like, yeah, I had like 36 machines, and I talked to them, and this lady just flat out told me, huh, well, I just don't believe you. And I was like, wait, like I didn't know what to say. So there's certain people that I can talk to about it more so than others. I would say nobody really knows everything, but yeah, disbelief. Um, some people just don't really know how to react. They're kind of shocked when I tell them that, I went to jail and I broke my leg, and oh man, I used to deal meth and met the cartel, and it sounds fake, to be honest with you. But yeah, I would say like people just can't believe that somebody would have done a lot of that.
Your old friends from your past life, like Rodrigo and your boss, do you have any contact with them still?
Rodrigo, I do. Rodrigo's like my brother. I mean, he's still with that same company. He's killing it. I mean, he's working. He's a CFA too, um, and he's working in like a dream role that we both aspired to get to at the time. And he's killing. I mean, he's doing everything right. And he's kind of from he's from Fort Worth. He grew up in a poor family, but he's got other friends that he grew up with that went to jail, and that are, that kind of got caught up in stuff like this. So he's very non-judgmental, and I showed him the blog. I showed him the part I wrote about him. Um, and without being condescending, I'm really proud of him and proud to call him my friend. And there's a handful of friends that have stuck with me, that you know understood that I made some terrible mistakes and that I'm not a bad person, and they see that, and they see me trying now. So yeah, I do have, I'd say probably five or less than five friends that I knew from before then that I still am in constant communication with now.
Do you have any sort of relationship with your daughter?
Yeah, I have a great relationship with my daughter right now. Um, they live in Austin, and I see her, I mean, at least a couple times a month, and I'm getting ready to move to Austin, where I'll be living in the same city with her, and I'm beyond excited about that. She's the reason, ultimately why I stay clean and why I go to work and why I'm trying to rebuild my life into something that can help her. Um, so yeah, my ex-wife and I mean, right now we also have a pretty good relationship. She's just glad I'm not dead or in jail. And they've been very supportive of my recovery and just kind of wanting the best for me, because it does nobody any good if I'm an absent father. So
Is there anything in closing you want to share?
just there's a lot of addicts both in recovery and in active addiction that subscribe and follow my blog. A lot of people that have been through some dark stuff can feel me when I share my stories. I messed up my life pretty bad, and I know that there might be people that are listening to this right now that are worried that they might be messing their life up pretty bad right now, or have gotten to a point where they're so low that they don't think recovery is possible. And I'm putting my story out there to try to show them that, if I can do it, you can do it, and we can try together. So, feel free to reach out to me, because I need to talk to people that want to rebuild their lives and get back on top as much as I do. I mean, I have a strong belief that I can rebuild something. I'm still fairly young. I've got a couple decades left in me to do something. I don't know what that is yet, but I've had a lot worse problems in life. So I do think that addiction gets a bad rap in our society. Again, criminals, addicts were treated as lesser individuals. There's something to be said for the penal system and for the way that America in general handles addicts and handles criminals. I think there needs to be, a bigger focus on rehabilitation to reduce recidivism. So maybe, that could be something, a cause that I take up later in life. I have no idea, but for now, I really appreciate you just giving me a platform to share my story, and just want to thank you for the time today, because anything that helps get my story and my word out, I think is kind of exciting and fun, and is helpful, like from from an area in my life where I could really use help. So yeah, I appreciate your time and this opportunity.
Well, man, I significantly appreciate you being willing to come on and share your story. Yeah, quite the eye-opener as to what that life is like and the things you sometimes have to do to survive. Again, though, his name is Alpha Tweaker, and you can check out his website in the video description. Real quick, before we wrap up, if you know anyone who's struggling with addictions right now, please try and help them before they do irreparable damage to their life. You can check out some of the resources I've linked to in the description, and hopefully they will be of some use to you and to the one you care about. Again, I want to thank Alpha Tweaker for not only agreeing to do this, but for his patience with me as well, since this took a little time to arrange. That was a Humans of Reddit segment, and if you want more interesting stories and interviews, then check out the playlist link in the description below. Now you guys stay safe, stay healthy, stay inside if you're supposed to. I will see you all tomorrow. Until then, I'm Exile451. Stay beautiful, people.